Hey folks, JodoCast again. Now what I'm going to be looking at doing this time is the Nerf Andor rifle, as I've shortened it. It's the Captain Cassian Andor blaster, blah blah blah. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to do a reasonably accurate representation of this blaster from the movie in the Nerf version. So we're going to look. Most of the blasters there, it's a really good base. We're going to be doing some performance mods. Going to do flywheel enhancement, motor replacement, voltage upgrade, rewire, micro switches, all the usual stuff. I'm going to leave it as a semi-auto because I like that feature. Lights and sound are going to stay on board, and we're just going to do the augmentation to make it look more like the blaster from the movie. So what I thought I would do is take you through the process from how it all sort of starts, because once again I'm going to use some 3D printed parts to try and make this look more like the movie produced version. So this basically is what the process is. I thought I'd give you a bit of an insight into the background of how it all sort of starts, and I'll show you a little bit more about the how I actually do the 3D modelling, etc. side of it a little bit more. We've all seen the performance mods. It's basically just a strike-free shell, so everyone's seen how to do the motor replacement and worker wheels and the micro switches and rewires and all that sort of crap. So look, it's pretty straightforward that way. A little bit different because it's got the lights and sound and whatever. But what I'm going to do with this actually is I'm going to be using Honey Badger motors, which I got from the boys over at Make Test Battle. So shout out to the guys, thanks for those. And going to be running on a 2S LiPo, which will mean that I can use the same battery pack to run the sound and lights and all that sort of stuff, as well as the Honey Badger motors, so I don't have to run additional power supplies and whatever. Plus the battery will fit nicely into the original spot up here. Alright, so how I start is I do some research, find out what the blaster looks like, try and get some decent reference pictures, etc. So I jump on the internet and I Google the blaster and try and find some images. Then I'll actually save a folder like what I've done here, and have different images from different perspectives of the blaster that I'm able to find, and hopefully I can get some decent ones that actually give you a reasonable sort of resolution and some detail. So I found a really good one which gives you fantastic detail of the blaster in its sniper configuration, which is what we're going to go for. I'm doing this in the sniper configuration. So as you can see, it's got that barrel extension and a little barrel extended piece above the barrel, which is going to be fairly straightforward. There's a spot there for that little extension to come out from the top, and I'm going to do a barrel extension that twist locks on and just basically gives you a similar sort of look to what that is. As you can see, there's some decent sort of muzzle brake sort of set up on that, which I'll try and replicate as best I can. The other really defined piece is the scope, which that may be a little tricky to 3D model. It shouldn't be too bad. I might have to do it as multiple prints and then join them together, but it shouldn't be too bad. And that basically will slot onto this Nerf rail at the top here. It's basically the trick is with this sort of thing is to scale it, obviously, because that blaster that we're seeing in the picture may not be the exact same size as this. So you try and scale it from, like as you can see, it sort of runs from this back section here. You've got your two bands, a gap, two bands, a gap, and then a longer band. And then on the replica here, the Nerf replica, you got your two bands, gap, two bands, a gap, and then this longer piece here. So you can sort of see that it runs from like the back of that front longer band all the way back. So basically it will take up the entire Nerf rail, and then the little outcropped part and the extension will actually jut out further, almost all the way to the end of the blaster. So we'll have them sort of come further forward to sort of probably around here. So so then what we do is we basically scale that piece, sort of design it and scale it to take up this section of the blaster, so that it looks approximately right once it's on the blaster. The other major defining difference is the stock. I haven't got a fantastic view of the stock. There's this one here, which I can't get a fantastic resolution version, but you can sort of see the design of the stock. So I'm thinking I may have to design that purely from scratch. I may be able to use the buffer tube part of a Raider stock, perhaps maybe even the base of the Raider stock, and just redo all the additional parts. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do exactly with that one, but I'll as I get closer to doing that part, I'll share that with you. Is there any other reference pics? Just another shot of the scope from a different angle, but that's not the sniper configuration. That's not actually Andors. That's Cassian's, and that's not Cassian. Sorry, it's a different one. So I think that's another one, and that shows his blaster in its sniper configuration. But again, it's not a high-res picture, so it's not a fantastic shot. So, but it gives you the idea. From that, I should be able to scale it and sort of get something that looks reasonably like the Captain Cassian Andor sniper configuration blaster. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go about designing the barrel extension, and then this little piece to go on the front here. Then we'll have a look at the scope, and I'll just give you some brief photos and shots of the process as the 3D modeling's going along, and then we'll continue with the rest of the video. Alright, okay, so what I have done so far is I have modelled up the barrel extension piece. So essentially there's the muzzle brake and the coupling that will go onto the front of the blaster. So what we're looking at is this piece here and this piece here, and then I'll use worker barrel to actually run through from the front of the blaster, like from right up hard tight all the way through. It'll run right up through to the into the muzzle brake section. So you can see a similarity between that piece there and the piece on the end of the barrel, and then this piece here is basically just will slot onto over the top, and then it has a bit of a chamfer on the corner here and what have you, which that's that piece there. So it's basically will slot on over the top of there, and then has that bit of a chamfered front edge there, a bit of a flat drop off, and then your barrel extension runs through and then into the back of your muzzle brake part up there. Alright, so that'll be the sniper barrel for the blaster. So we'll print those off and see how they come out, and check them out on the blaster to give us an idea if we're ready to move forward with the next piece. Okay, so we take our 3D models and we then print them out, and we get this. So we'll check these on the blaster and see if they look alright, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, so they've come up well. We've got the piece of worker barrel in between, and that's given us that sniper barrel look that we were after. So now we'll move on to modelling the scope. Okay, so what we do is we basically look at our reference photos and go back and forth between that and our model, and slowly start to add detail, look at the small details and what have you on it, and try and add those to make it look as close as possible. As you can see, our sniper barrel extension has come up pretty good. Like, it's a pretty good representation of what we've got on the screen. So we'll model up the scope, and then once that's complete, jump ahead here. We've got that's it as a work in progress. Then got it completed, butterflied it so that it would be easier to print, and changed the end piece so that you could actually fit in a bit of aluminium in there, and then that gets printed out, and with the aluminium inserted into it, we end up with this as the scope piece. Just needs a little bit of a sand and clean up, and obviously a coat of paint. But we'll fit that to the blaster and have a look compared to our photo. Alright, so there you see it compared to our photo. A lot of the details are there, and it's got the right look about it. So we're getting there. Need to do this little extension above the main barrel, which I'm going to use a piece of aluminium for that. So I'll just show you that done as well. There we go, so there you get the overall look. So now we'll move on to the stock. The front end of the blaster is done. We're going to turn our attention to the stock section. Now we've got our reference pics here, which aren't fantastic, but you can sort of see the rough design of the stock. There's like a curved section at the front, a couple of bands in the midsection sort of thing, and then these couple of sort of raised sections along here with that angled piece at the front. I think we've got a better, here we go, this one's better, yeah, there we go. So you can get a better idea of what it looks like there. So you've got this main curved part of the section with a recess in it. It comes up and there's like a band goes over the top. Looks like there's a couple of channels through that, and then you've got your main piece at the back with the two horizontals and then a diagonal sort of coming up to the back of the that angled section at the front. So that gives us an idea of what our stock has to look like. And then I found this reference pic, which isn't great at showing the whole thing, but it shows where you've got sort of the rounded section and then the two bands at the back, and a little bit of a straight section up to the back of the stock. And there's a bit of a flat gap in the back in that section there, so it sort of gives us a rough idea of what it's supposed to look like. It drops down, comes up, and then it curves up to the front here and goes over the top of the main sort of tubular part as well. So now we start doing our drawings, our 3D designs, and initially I started off looking at doing it like an extension, so it would slot onto where the stock clips on, and then I thought, oh well, you could use a Raider stock on the on there, so you could like clip this onto this is obviously a half profile, you just mirror it to get your, so there you go, so that gives you your full effect. So yeah, so that would actually slot onto where your stock goes, and then I use a Raider stock to slot onto the back of that and what have you. But with like all these things, you come up with a design and you think, oh yeah, that'll work, so that you go ahead and print it and what have you. But then when you actually see it being used in the way that you've sort of designed it to, it actually doesn't work. So you sort of you've got to go back to the drawing board, but at least you've got somewhere to sort of start with. So yeah, so I kind of did print that to sort of see how it would come out. And when you get the blaster, and it goes on where the stock extension would go. I mean, that side of it was okay, it sort of fitted on there good, but then when the stock fits onto the back of it, that's when everything started going pear-shaped, because you can see there's this massive gap here, and it didn't go back far enough because I hadn't allowed for the gap at the front to extend through, and yeah, so it kind of wasn't really looking right. Plus I sort of wanted to have something come up over the top of this tube in the Raider stock, so that design wasn't really working. So I went back to the drawing board and redesigned. Now, because I was thinking of using the Raider stock with it, the other idea I had was like, as you can see on there, I've got the M4 stock style plates there that I designed a while ago that some of you may have seen. Because I already had that design, I thought, well, maybe I can utilise that base design and come up with the two rails that come forward, and then the diagonal rail that goes up and across to the back of that front section. So I mucked around with that to get that design as well. But with this angled four grip section, spit it out. There was a second reiteration where I extended it back a bit further, and tried to make it up a little bit tighter. Because the other thing I found with that is that when it was on the blaster, this section here it like completely interfered with the back of your thumb when your hand was on the grip. So it like was not going to work. So therefore, I thought, okay, we'll go with this idea where we can put this cutout here to accommodate your thumb and what have you, but it makes it very thin through here, and you still get that extension and then the longer piece, and it still doesn't sit up tight underneath. So I still wasn't happy with that. So redesigned again and ended up coming up with a different concept altogether, and that was to do it this way, which there we go. So you had your curved section at the front there that would go up to a band that goes over the top. You've got your piece that comes up over your band at the back, so they would sit over the top of this tube part of the stock, and then this edge here is going to sit right underneath the buffer tube part and give you that elongated piece, and then you do your curvature right at the front, which would sit, get it off, would sit right underneath this part of the stock. It would come down and then curve up to that front corner there, sort of, and give you that rounded curved effect. And it would sit right up behind the mount here, so hence a little step there and what have you, so it'd sit up right up in there and give you your cutout and what have you. So that'd be the curved section for the front, and then with the rear plates, if I can find the design, so I used the original M4 stock plates and then redesigned and come up with that, so that I can put that on over the top of the Raider stock on either side to give you those two horizontal raised sections with the diagonal that joins them, and then a little straight section that goes up to the back of the front curved section. So once all the design was done, I then went and printed them out. The print didn't come out fantastically where the bands were that go over the buffer tube, because they're just too thin. I need to sort of thicken them up. But what I did was I used a heat gun to clean them up a little bit, and some epoxy putty to get that looking better. With the modifications on the Raider stock, I trimmed off the majority of this top rail. Just left the little screw port part at the front, and then just trimmed off the vertical to this sort of section that goes up, as you can see the piece of it there that runs up there across here. I just trimmed that off and epoxy putty that up, and where I trimmed this off, I had to epoxy putty up the hole at the top there, and then fitted the different pieces, the curved piece and the straight piece, and there's our end result. So it's obviously yet to be done in two-tone, because the one in the pictures is the whole tube section is almost silver, and these bars here are silver as well, so those will be touched up. I'm just going to heavily dry brush them with the silver to make them sort of stand out, but you get the rough idea of how the stock has sort of ended up. And then if you have a look at it in comparison to our reference pics, that's not the greatest reference pic in the world, but you can sort of see the rough design that we're going for. Yeah. So you can see that it's sort of the look we're after. So once it's all dry brushed up and everything, it'll look a lot more like the proper thing. So there's a stock section done as well. So now we're ready to move on to the actual blaster itself. Now it's a bit of a correction. This is actually the Jin Urso blaster. That's how it's sold, because obviously the Cassian Andor Deluxe blaster comes with a scope and a barrel extension and a radar stock, which look nothing like what's actually in the picture here, but there's a barrel extension, a sight, and a stock, so it's kind of closer than the Jin Urso one. I've taken the Jin Urso blaster and I'm trying to basically make it look like Cassian Andor's rifle in the blaster, whatever you want to call it, in the sniper configuration as it was mentioned in the movie. So, which is as you see it here in the reference pic. We're ready to start work on the blaster. So we'll just take it apart in the usual fashion. Just unscrew it. At this juncture, there's also the screws in the end cap here, which will have to come out. There's one more screw under here. Okay, the other thing we're going to do at this point is remove the batteries. So normally this blaster runs on 4 AA batteries at 1.5 volts each. So you're looking at 6 volts, so it normally runs on 6 volts. Now if we go up to do a LiPo conversion on this and run it on a little 2S pack, something like this, then you're looking at 7.4 volts. Now it's only 1.4 volts higher, so it's not going to destroy the electronics that are already in there, so you'll still be able to run your amplifier and your light display, etc., all off this 7.4 volt 2S LiPo. And because we're going to run the 2S LiPo so that we can run everything off the one battery, we're going to run Honey Badger motors. So we've got a few make test battle Honey Badger motors, so little Honey Badgers on 2S scream. You get a good 100 plus feet per second out of your Honey Badgers. The other thing we're going to do is have a look at the flywheel setup. We may end up replacing the flywheels with worker flywheels, perhaps. I will have to have a bit of a look and double check. And the only other thing that I wanted to sort of make a note of at this point was that I have done a slight shell modification already, which was on the side channel of this top tack rail. There's 2 little posts that sit in this channel here and here, either side of that back screw, and I have actually taken those out on both sides. So it's a straight channel right through on both sides. Those little posts have been taken out to open that up into a smooth, unobstructed channel. So that's the only shell modification that I've done so far. I think it's probably the only shell modification what we will do, because all the rest's cosmetic. So yeah, Drac was saying that he had a problem with the glue, and I haven't experienced that. I found that there's only a little bit of glue on there and it comes away quite easily. So I've been able to get the motors out reasonably easily and put the Honey Badgers in. The only thing I did notice, have found, is that with the fitting of the worker flywheels, is that they touch on the outer casing here. So what I'm going to do is pop this back off, and I'm actually just going to run the flywheels on an exposed motor and with a bit of sandpaper, and just take a little bit of material off this edge, just like 1/4 of a millimetre, just so that it spins freely once it's compressed all the way down on there, because it touches at all these bottom edges points. So I'm going to do that work and then pop that other motor out, put the other Honey Badger in, get the worker flywheels in place, and then I'll come back and show you and just explain exactly what I had to do to get those into place and get them working properly. Okay, so I've got the worker wheels fitted into the flywheel cage here now with the honey badgers in. So what I ended up doing was attaching the flywheels to the honey badger motor and then hooking it up to a battery and running it, and then just actually using the file on the edge to bring it down a little bit, take out a little bit of material off both the top and bottom edge, so that it now doesn't interfere with the housing at all. Had to do that on both the wheels, and then just used a bit of sandpaper just to get a nice smooth finish back onto them. But yeah, the effect is now that these wheels are now spinning freely, they're not touching or fouling on anything, and they're lined up nice and central now, so the dart feeds through perfectly straight through the middle nicely, and as it gets a good grip on those wheels as it comes through. So yeah, so that's all good, ready to go. Got the blaster done in a base coat of black. So now the next step is to there we go. So, there we go. Okay. So, let's... Now, we've got the additional pieces to go on. So there's our scope, which will slide on. So I'll cut the video here. I'll go off and do some dry brushing and check out the reference pics. So you can see your stock on the back there. I think we're pretty close to... Alright, so we've got our major reference pictures here, and now let's compare our blaster with our major reference pictures. Whoop there. It's kind of a bit hard to hold, but so let's see if I can I'll just put it on the bench here. So you got a lot of silver up the very barrel tip front end like this, then that very mottled silver all the way down through to just in front of the handguard section, which as you can see there, sort of it's all that mottled silver down to just in front of the trigger cage sort of area like that. And then on your scope you've got like the main center section through the middle. It's got all that silver look to it, so you've got like the silver through that middle section of the scope there. You can sort of see it better on that one. And then your stock, you've got your main black sections, silver through the main length of the actual shaft, and then your 2 silver rails through the middle. So yeah, so overall effect. So, and on the other side you've got, you can see the similarities between the stock and the scope section. Same with the modelled silver sort of across the length. That top section through there is mainly black with this mainly silver bands, as you can sort of see there. It's sort of silver at the tip, then black, silver, then silver bands, mainly black through the centre. So like what we've done here. As you can see with this bit, sort of silvered, you've got the modelled silver all the way down, then it's sort of almost clean, sort of from the front of the trigger. It's like this, almost like a clean break where it becomes clean, and you've got just a little accent of silver over in front of the stock before it runs off into the main silver tube and the silver tinged bits of the stock there. So yeah, so there we go. Well, we've got the whole blaster. So there's our Captain Cassian Andor blaster rifle in sniper mode mod. All done. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and see you on the next mod. Cheers.